Welcome to Press Coverage. I'm Theo Gremminger, and I'm joined by Andrew Cooper of Fantasy Alarm. Coop, you're like the second guest to get to enjoy my really, really dope intro song. So congratulations on that. Welcome to Press Coverage. At Press Coverage, we're always trying to look for the guests that can help us sift through the noise and help us find the edges so we can win in our leagues. I think it's getting harder and harder to find those edges. It's like the information age. There's so much out there. But we're going to sift through it. We're going to get you ready for Week 5. We're going to talk about a couple of must-start players. But Coop, you're rolling, man. You're everywhere. You're dropping multiple shows a week. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find your work?
Yeah, man. So, hey, just want to say thanks for having me on, dude. And for the folks listening, like, this is not our first rodeo. You and me been doing it since the GOAT District, bro. That's why, even if I'm super busy, when Theo says it's time to rock, it's time to rock, dude, because you guys have a great audience. I've been a big fan of Player Profiler forever. You know, I did the Find a Mansion with Matt, but yeah, man. For me personally, I've been doing shows every day of the week. We kind of cover the 1 to 3 block. But if you go over the Fantasy Alarm YouTube, I'm subscribed to this one. You should subscribe to ours. We basically have it set where Monday, I break down all the usage for all the players. Tuesday, waiver questions. Wednesday, trades. Thursday, lineups. Friday, we set a FFPC team, do all that. Theo, I got to get you on that show. So,
I'm down.
But yeah, and if you just follow me on Twitter, that's where all my articles, all my stuff goes. I make the ones I've been giving back to the community. The ones that got me even into this industry, I still do those for free. Like, even though Fantasy Alarm, they want things paywalled, whatever, the yin and yang, tight end, stuff like that, always going to be free for you guys. So definitely throw the follow on there. You get all that stuff for free.
Yeah, and I was going to wait till after the break, but why don't we just jump into it? Because I'll say the yin and yang tight end article, like if you're looking for a specific tight end article, this is it. I honestly think that I know we have you covered on a lot of stuff at Player Profiler. Some of our competitors are putting out very strong material, but in terms of specifically looking at the tight end position in depth, you've sort of developed this reputation in the industry, and I don't like to call you that because I feel like you're like this multifaceted, fantasy analyst, and you shouldn't get kind of like, pigeonholed into being like this tight end guy, because you're actually like really good at every other position. But the tight end position, you've got down to a science. And why don't you explain what the yin and yang article is, how you classify tight ends? It's not like, hey, Andrew's going to rank his top 12. You do it a little differently.
Yeah, so I mean, and again, Player Profiler, I still subscribe to Player Profiler, even though we're technically competitors. It's like in this industry, we're all kind of working together to help gamers that care beat the casual gamers. That's the way I look at it. Like, that's where it's like with us on Reddit. It's like people got to realize it's us against the world, So people that watch this show are the same people that like our stuff because we take it to another level, right? And the reason I do the yin and yang tight end the way I do it is it's not like every other position. At wide receiver and running back, you know how to navigate rostering players because you're always going to roster the players you're using, right? So in terms of weekly rankings, those players are always going to be on your roster. And then at the bottom, you're still stashing guys. With tight end, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you don't want to drop your upside tight end for just whoever is the best weekly matchup this week. I mean, I guess it works with kicker and defense too, but you're not going to roster two. Basically, the way I figured out how to do it with tight end is I do my rankings not in a linear fashion. At the top, you have one tier, the standalone tier. If you have Travis Kelce, you only need a tight end for your bye week. You're not rostering two. That's the way it goes. And there are a couple guys in that tier. A few guys dropped out where I'm not trusting them anymore, and a couple guys moved up. Sam Laporta to me is a guy that's in that tier now. Evan Engram, guys that we can trust for the time being. We'll talk about them on the show, I imagine, because you probably want to do some tight end talk. But after that standalone tier, the next level, we call it yin and yang. Yin is the safest play, especially for early in the season, that you can start. And the yang is the highest risk, high reward option. And the reason you have both is that if you go only high risk, then you could bleed games. People were drafting Cole Kmet last year. He started off with back-to-back zeros, but he finished as tight end 6, right? Or vice versa. If you only take a really safe, boring guy, then that's just a one-way ticket to third place. So what we're doing is we're basically using the yin as a placeholder while we find the breakout. And every year for the last 6 years now, a tight end's come from outside the top 17 to finish top 5. So they're out there. We're going to find them. I mean, last year was a perfect yin and yang tight end. I don't want to go too far on this because, people probably heard, for people that are hearing this for the first time, the perfect example was last year. We were drafting Zach Ertz because we knew DeAndre Hopkins was suspended for 6 games. And we were saying, let's start Ertz. It gives us 6 games to find a breakout. Sure enough, we go out. Evan Engram ends up being that guy, drafted outside the top 20, finishes top 5. That's how you do it. You weren't starting rookie Mark Andrews, his breakout year right away. You weren't starting Darren Waller. The only way to get those guys was draft 2. And this year, a bunch of people going yin and yang tight end, you know what they did? They drafted 2, and one of them happened to be Sam Laporta, and now they're the kings of the world. All those leagues where you look around at the waivers and the breakout tight end wasn't there, sometimes people took 2. Sometimes people took 2 quarterbacks, and one was Anthony Richardson. It's not crazy in today's age to take 2. So that's the end of that spiel, Theo. Hope I didn't take up too much of the show.
No, I think that's you explained it perfectly. And we actually had you on First Class Fantasy with Billy Muzio and I, when we were in like the end of drafting season, end of August, I believe was when you were on. And we talked about chasing the upside at the tight end position. I think one thing that, really resonated with us in a great way that you explained things was kind of the flatness of the tight end position. And that's why that was the whole thesis for Kincaid and Laporta. And I think certain people were scared off by those two. And we're going to touch base on Kincaid a little more, but certainly like the whole narrative that we can't take rookie tight ends, you thought that was a kind of ridiculous one at the time. And maybe you could kind of share why you were so aggressive towards, drafting these guys.
I mean, aggressive is the right term. And I will say that people were, because I was calling it lazy. I was saying it's lazy analysis to say never draft rookie tight ends, because you have to evaluate each individual player in each individual situation. Are we really going to punish Sam Laporta because Eric Ebron wasn't good as a rookie? That doesn't make any sense. Eric Ebron was playing with Megatron, and he was playing with Golden Tate, and he was a totally different player. So it's very rare that we get breakout rookies, because you not only have to have the best pass catching tight end on the team, but he has to be a top 2 pass catcher in general. I mean, Kyle Pitts fit the mold. He had 1,000 yards, and people pretend like that didn't happen, right? This year, most years I pour cold water all over him. Last year, people were asking me about rookie tight ends, and I said, no, forget about them, right? Like, none of them have the path. None of them have the opportunity, even if they have the skill. This year, we had 3 guys that I said, hey, the skill is there, the opportunity is there, and we're just going to see what happens. It was Dalton Kincaid, it was Sam Laporta, and it was Luke Musgrave. Michael Mayer, unfortunately, not only was he's more of an inline tight end, but as we see now, he's splitting with Austin Hooper. And I mean, they have Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams, all these other guys. So his path was convoluted, but you just got to look at it individually. And next year, the thing is, people are going to come to me and say, we're doing it again, right? Brock Bowers? Well, maybe. Well, let's see where Brock Bowers lands. Because if Brock Bowers lands on a team that has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, people might get excited, but it's incredibly rare for a team.
Don't put that out there, Coop.
I know.
Let's get Brock Bowers on the team.
Let's get him safely. Yeah, safely to it. I put an even worse one out there on our show the other day. I said, what if I'm going to say it here, but I'm going to apologize. What if his offensive coordinator from college wants him on the team and he ends up spending time behind Mark Andrews?
Well, that would be, you could still paint yourself a picture that Mark Andrews, maybe they get rid of him when he's 30. Dude. Brock Bowers, you can't ruin Brock Bowers for us.
Can't.
Brock Bowers,
he's too good. He's too good, man. But yeah, but what we do is we analyze each player in each situation individually. So me calling people lazy, it's if your analysis and is lazy and you're going to leave it at, oh, he's a rookie, he can't be good. Well, not only were you lazy, but you were wrong. So, there you go.
There's very few things in life where being unwilling to change and being like steadfast with like dogmatic rules and not being at least a little bit flexible. Like it's not just in fantasy football. There's other jobs that you can say this for. But like this was the whole notion years ago that we would never draft a wide receiver that was switching teams. These guys always failed. And then all of a sudden, Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins and Odell Beckham, and, now it's A.J. Brown. And I mean, there's a million examples of this. That used to be kind of a rule. There used to also be rules that, we didn't want, these rookie receivers. We'd rather have them be like 3rd-year breakouts. then now the third year breakout, like you get written off if you haven't broken out in the first 2 years. So I think that, being flexible and being willing to kind of change your rules, with your fantasy football approach is what like a lot of the great analysts and great drafters do. And I think that from now on, people are going to be a little bit more open to drafting these guys like Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers actually might get way overdrafted because Sam Laporta is such a baller.
Yeah, honestly, and we do this all the time. Chasing last year, chasing last week, chasing narratives. We just got to look at it individually. But your point, your biggest one, that's the worst. If the answer to a rule is that, well, that's just the way we've always done it. Not only does that mean that it's probably stupid, but it's also going to be incredibly difficult to change. Unfortunately, those are the hardest rules to change when they say, well, we've always done it this way. Right. But time to think about and the way I always look at it is, hey, that's how we get an advantage. Some of the best advantages come from those psychological. Oh, never been a good rookie tight end. Why? Right. Why? Oh, this guy's a wide receiver 2 on his own team, so he gets faded. Well, guess what? Last year, half of the wide receivers in the top 20, 10 of the top 20 wide receivers came from just 5 teams. So being the wide receiver on your own team continues to be one of the best discounts. Like, take those little psychological tricks and put them in your back pocket, right? The rookie tight end one might be out of the bag now, but there's still a ton out there, man. There's still so many. David Montgomery can't be good because Jahmyr Gibbs is there. Oh, okay.
Well, we're going to touch base on Detroit. You're going to try to make me feel good about my Jahmyr Gibbs shares, or will you, when we hear from a word from our sponsors?
Hey, we're all starting new fantasy leagues all the time. And more often than not, where do we start our fantasy leagues at Player Profiler? On Sleeper. Because it's the best. You can imagine my excitement when I saw Sleeper rolled out. Sleeper picks, baby. And game stacking is the path to positive returns with these pick'em games. Find that sneaky shootout and set most of the players to go over their projection for that week. Or you find a game going to get dragged into the mud and take every member of the passing game for less than their projections that week. And if you pick up to 8, that's how you 100x your payout on Sleeper. It's called the Hail Mary. So if you use promo code Underworld, you get a $100 instant deposit match. Check out Sleeper's terms and conditions for details. These Sleeper picks are live in over 25 states. Yeah, buddy.
Welcome back to Press Coverage. I'm Theo Gremminger, joined by Andrew Cooper of Fantasy Alarm. Coop, we talked about how you came on First Class Fantasy, and then you've also come on Mind to Mansion recently. You've been a notable guest in the Roto Underworld. But the last time we talked, we were still trying to sift through, identify our favorite ADP values. And now we have 4 weeks of sample size. This is like, we have real information. We're able to kind of sift through and say, maybe I was right here. Maybe I was wrong here. I'm mad at this coach. Maybe this coach is waiting to slow play guy. But when you take a step back and you look at the season in general, besides Puka Nacua, who is your most pleasant surprise? A player that's performance has really wowed you that maybe you weren't on necessarily this summer?
Yeah, I mean, the Rams in general, it's not just Puka. I mean, Kyron Williams is RB3 right now. Matt Stafford is throwing some darts, man. Like, he is looking nice out there. So got to go with the Rams in general. One player that this is the part that hurts for this player, is that I was in on him in Dynasty as a rookie. I comped this guy to Kenny Golladay, same height, speed, draft capital, pretty much very similar player. And it was Nico Collins. And I was throwing some darts at him in best ball, but I turned around and looked at my redraft teams, and I don't have as much of him as I thought that I would, considering this is a guy that I had previously liked. And I was, what it was? I was going for guys like John Mechie, some of these, other, unproven upside guys. But Nico Collins, man, has really shown that he can be a true X wide receiver in this league, that he can be a split end that tethers his foot to the line. He might have some trouble in tough matchups, but when you can play that role, you can play a massive snap share. Look at Michael Pittman. He never comes off the field because he can tether his foot to the line opposite the tight end. And Nico Collins is proven that he can do that, which is kind of rare in this age. So, man, talk about, what is he, like, wide receiver 7 right now?
Yeah.
Is that going to hold? I don't know.
35 points last week in PPR.
Got to be fired up. Yeah, got to be fired up by Nico Collins.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you, when you have a big quarterback upgrade and you have a offensive coordinator who gets it, that things can turn around for some of these players. And, I think that there was a number of dynasty managers that kind of got off of Nico Collins, or at least were, had him in the back end of their roster and didn't really think about it. It's like found money if you have him. And if you, kind of gave up on him, it's really, really difficult one to swallow because he's really, really good. How about a player that you were bullish on that you're super disappointed about, either the way they're being used or their performance on the field?
Yeah, I mean, this one good player, you can make all the excuses in the world, but the numbers are not there for Miles Sanders. And I wrote a full article just on Miles Sanders, kind of explaining that, hey, the Eagles offense is as good as it is. The quarterback doesn't throw to running backs. They threw the fewest passes to running backs last year. He uses the tush push and all the other RPO stuff to vulture touchdowns. I was like, this is a good opportunity for him. The GM wants to throw him passes. And, he has the second most targets of any running back, but either he's hurt, this is when you get to the bad place, right? Theo, when you sit here and your guy is producing so poorly that you're hoping he's hurt. Like, when you have good players, you do not want them to be hurt. But when your players are playing bad, I sit here and I'm like, geez, I hope this guy is hurt. Like, I hope that the groin's bothering right now and that there's a version of this guy out there that looks better, because the version we're seeing right now doesn't even look as good as Chuba Hubbard. And you and I, how many times have we seen Chuba Hubbard get a shot and not look good? Donta Foreman came off the street and played over him and had like 900 yards. And right now, it's hard to watch the game and not say that guy's better than this guy. So for Miles Sanders right now, I'm just hoping that it's a groin that he's going to get better. I want to know your thoughts, though, on the guy.
No, I completely agree with you. I think Miles Sanders is a guy that they gave the big contract to, and I think he's breaking down a little bit. I think he had the pec injury and now the groin injury, and you don't like seeing guys have multiple injuries. And last week you saw them kind of limiting his volume. He played less snaps than Chuba Hubbard. He was outgained by Chuba Hubbard. I mean, both of them were abysmal on the ground. I think Chuba Hubbard was like 2.5 yards a carry, and Sanders didn't break 2 yards a carry. Neither one was very good, but you're right. Chuba looks a lot better. I wonder if they're going to sit Miles Sanders down soon. And I think that could come sooner than later. They're trying to protect Bryce Young at all costs. I don't think they want to limit personnel for him. But at the end of the day, you can only do so much when you're banged up. And Miles Sanders is definitely a very, very good answer there. That's a tough one. Hey, and we see the kind of the rumblings that Carolina is going to aggressively go after a wide receiver. Today, there's a report about Hollywood Brown. They've been linked to T. Higgins. I mean, there's been a lot of these guys out there. Certainly the Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. Anytime somebody's trading for a receiver, those names come up. Would you care to guess which guys they're going after and kind of which guy would make the most sense for them to go after?
So I didn't even hear the Marquise Brown news, the Hollywood Brown news, but he was on my list. So you have to think, like, when this happens, everybody throws every name out, but you got to think about where this team is, right? They're 0-4. The wide receiver they want is not one to win the Super Bowl. The wide receiver they want is one to grow with their young quarterback at this point, right? So they're not going to. Devontae Adams, all the rumors and stuff. Why would Devontae Adams, if he wants to win now, go to a team that hasn't won a game? Why would the Bucs trade Mike Evans in the division to a 31-year-old Mike Evans? So you have to look for two things that will allow a young player to change teams. It's either underperforming and needing a change of scenery, right? Or it's a guy that the team knows they can't pay him. Like Chandler Jones, we know everything is going on with him is crazy right now. But back when he was with the Patriots, he was a good player. They just knew they weren't going to pay him, and they traded him away, and they still won the Super Bowl. So I look around and I say, okay, T. Higgins, they don't, short term doesn't matter, so they can let him heal from the injury. And if the Bengals aren't going to pay him, let him go. To maybe do a re-roll on a Rashad Bateman, right? Marquise Brown's perfect because he's an old regime guy. The old regime went and got him. And if they plan on to move on from Kyler Murray, well, you don't need Kyler Murray's roommate anymore, do you? Right? Maybe it's time to make that move. I also throw out Jamison Williams, maybe if he's not he's already been suspended for the, breaking the rules, all that. Like if he's not a culture fit, maybe he goes. And then kind of a dark horse one would be like a Deontay Johnson, where you look around and say, hey, we got to pay. We're gonna have to pay Pickens. We got to, it's like the Steelers have not been afraid to let guys go, knowing that, hey, you know what, this Calvin Austin guy, he's coming out and he's kind of giving us a little glimpse of what Deontay Johnson gives us anyway, maybe with less drops. So I don't know, maybe that's an opportunity as well.
No, I love it. I think that the Hollywood Brown makes sense. He's definitely a solid wide receiver. Has had good success in this league, and he's coming up on a contract. So, I think those kind of guys make sense. T. Higgins is the one, though, Coop. I think if they have an opportunity to go get T. Higgins, especially because they don't have a first rounder in this draft, like T. Higgins is their best chance to add an alpha. They don't have their first rounder to offer, but I think 2 second rounders probably gets it done. Cincinnati's going to have to pay Ja'Marr Chase a record-breaking contract. I mean, Chase wants to set the market. It's going to be something crazy, and they already paid Burrow. So I think Higgins is the one you want to keep an eye on. And, I have concerns about Bryce Young, though. And we talked a little bit about Nico Collins. Why don't you kind of give your thoughts on the rookie quarterback so far? I mean, Anthony Richardson, you brought him up in the show as a guy that people chasing upside were drafting, but I think his plays kind of exceeded expectations. And CJ Stroud, he's blowing expectations out of the water. He looks incredible. Your thoughts on those guys, and then we can kind of touch base on Young.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm not willing to write off Bryce Young yet. I love what we're seeing from CJ Stroud. You got to look at the way these teams are set up and built. Like with the Texans, they knew what they wanted to do. It's the Shanahan offense, right? You watched Mike McDaniel go to the Dolphins. First thing he did, go and get Alec Ingold, right? Second thing, you need the fullback. You need the Kyle Juszczyk, right? Second thing he did, well, we need our Trent Williams. They go and pay Teron Armstead, right? This team, and then you can build the rest with the weapons. So this Texans team, they knew what they were doing. They went out, they got Andrew Beck, right? He was playing a bunch of fullback. He even ran back that kickoff the other day, which was awesome, right? But
yeah, that was cool. Yeah, you rarely see that. You rarely
see that, dude. Yeah, so heaviest guy to ever run back a kick. Dan Conley for the Patriots scored on that legendary one against the Packers. He would have been definitely far and away the heaviest guy. But
yeah, Conley was like 285, right?
Yeah, or he was like, I think I checked it out. Yeah, I think it said he was like 310 playing weight.
Okay,
big boy. So yeah, but you look at what the Panthers are doing, and they just said, hey, we're gonna have a brand new offense. Everybody brand new. I've never seen that. I don't know. Have you ever seen a team go out and say, I mean, think about their brand new starting tight end, Hayden Hurst, brand new starting running back in Miles Sanders, brand new quarterback, every starting wide receiver, Mingo, DJ Chark, and Thielen, all new to the team. I've never seen that. So they kind of set themselves up for a good deal of pain, to be honest, like growing pains for sure. So I don't know if we can fully blame that on Bryce Young, but I can say this. If they didn't take him because of the S2 cognitive test and all that stuff, then it's really going to feel like a mistake if they put enough stock into that. And that was the reasoning, So I'm rooting for both. My default is to root for these guys. I don't root against rookies, quarterbacks. Even as a Patriots fan, I didn't sit here and wish ill on Zach Wilson because it's like, you know what? Let's see what they got. So I'm still everyone has a chance in my eyes. So I can't call it after 4 games, but got to love what you're seeing for CJ Stroud.
Fantasy football is better when there's good quarterback play across the league.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, Coop, your fantasy team is your real team. You can have your fandom, but at the end of the day, it's our fantasy teams that move the needle. And Stroud, yeah, I mean, I think that they didn't quite go as dramatic, but they add Tank Dell. They're certainly using Nico Collins differently and the Robert Woods addition. But yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe it was a little too much from Carolina. I think they should have been a little bit more calculated in the type of players that they're adding around Bryce Young. And I think the scheme is not really helping him. It's a ton of screen passes and Frank Reich at this point looks like he lost his fastball a little bit, but we'll see. It's a lot of season left. This is going to be an interesting game against Detroit because Detroit is definitely going to put the pressure on Carolina to have to keep up with them. I think that this is a tough matchup for them. But let's stay with Detroit. I want your opinion on the running backs, and we touch base on Laporta. I have a couple of other Laporta questions, but what is your general thoughts on Jameson Williams comes back this week? We thought that this was going to be like a week 7 thing for Jameson Williams. Now he's back immediately. And this is a player that played 6 games last year, had only 1 catch, but the pedigree, the speed, it's exciting to think about what he could do for this offense stylistically. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So just for everybody out there, you cannot drop him after this week. You can't drop him after next week because people don't realize how difficult it is to play NFL football. It's not a matter of saying like, oh, he was suspended, so he's been working out. He has not been allowed to be around the team at all. They basically halfway through the suspension, you're allowed to do meetings. That's it. No practice, no treatment, no trainers. Like you can have your own trainers off to the side, but nothing prepares you to play gladiator sport. So when Dan Campbell says he's not going to come out and play 60 snaps, that would be dumb. It's not dumb because he's not a good player or he's not ready to play from a mental standpoint or any of that. It would be dumb because he would you have to ramp your way up to playing full games. You can't just come out and rock right away. So it's going to take time. And to me, there's 2 outcomes. One outcome is that he's a field stretcher and, he's a speedy guy that can score every once in a while. And he'll be a boom bust type guy, Deshaun Jackson, T.Y. Hilton, Santana Moss type player that is great in best ball, but can't really be trusted week to week. Worst case scenario, the KJ Hamler version where, he just runs around and takes the top off, but they don't actually throw it to him.
Cardio
guy's on the table. It's on the table, right? For guys like this, like it's entirely possible, right? But the ideal one is the one where Dan Campbell describes himself. He goes, I don't care about the touchdowns. I want to see a reliable wide receiver. If you have a field stretcher that transcends into a player that can run a big route tree and get intermediate passes, well, that's where you get Tyreek Hill. That's where you get T.Y. Hilton in his prime, where he is the field stretcher and he's running all these other routes as well. That's where you get Brandon Cooks for periods. You know what I mean? Like Will Fuller would have stretches where, that's entirely possible. And boy, if either version of it could open things up big time underneath for everybody else, because you got to account for a guy like that has that speed and that size on the outside. They don't have that right now. Josh Reynolds is not doing that right now.
Yeah, that's sort of been my takeaway. I think it's like a pie grows larger. It makes me like Jared Goff more. I don't see him as any sort of a threat to the Laportas and the Amon-Ra St. Browns. I mean, I think those guys are kind of entrenched in their roles. I think it would be more of a, stylistically, this is going to be their fastest guy, potentially a big deep threat for them. And I think it kind of dusts Raymond, it dusts Marvin Jones. Reynolds is interesting. Reynolds has played well, and he's had, pretty consistent usage. It'll be interesting to see if he takes a major back seat. But I think that, like you said, there needs to be a little bit of patience there. How about with the running back position in Detroit? Last week was extremely tilting. We thought if you're Jahmyr Gibbs manager, you thought maybe you'd have the primetime game to yourself, and then David Montgomery plays, and Montgomery goes nuts. He's the first Detroit Lion to ever rush for 3 touchdowns in Lambeau Field. He has 30-plus carries. It was pretty wild. And Jahmyr Gibbs, people acted like it was the sky was falling. He ends up running back 25 on the week in PPR, 9.5 points. I mean, disappointing, but it's not like he was a 0. How do you see this thing shaking out? Your thoughts on both, the situation with both?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people said, including me, well, he'll be in the Jamal Williams role, but he's not going to score 17 touchdowns. And now I'm looking at him like, well, like 5 touchdowns through 3 games. I was near like, well, maybe. Yeah, he's probably still not going to score 17, but I mean, maybe. Now, before we were saying no, and now we're saying maybe, right? So, like, you got to love it. And I will tell you this, Austin Eckler, actually, if you he's been doing some interviews with people. He did an interview recently with Matt Harmon. It's on Twitter. I suggest you check out the quick clip. But basically what Austin Eckler said is he sees he watched Jahmyr Gibbs and he said, this guy has the talent. He makes all the moves, but you can tell he's a rookie. And he clarified on that David Montgomery, when they're setting up these counters and when they're setting up these zones, these zone rushes, Montgomery plays it straight. He has his shoulders set and he doesn't give the play away. He leads the defense into getting rug pulled with the counter, right? Eckler didn't give this example, but to those that might not be able to picture what I'm talking about, just imagine you have 2 quarterbacks, right? And you run a and you're running play action, and one of the quarterbacks he takes the snap and he just doesn't even fake the handoff and he just runs right over and throws it, right? And that might work, right? If he's talented enough or good enough. But the other quarterback, he really sells the fake. And then he goes and makes the play and it all opens wide open for him. That's what David Montgomery is doing, is he's selling these counters, selling these fakes, and it's just what they want to see, right? And with a guy like DeAndre Swift, what they're saying is that he didn't read plays well at all. And I even saw a clip from last week of him not reading a play well in the Eagles, right? So with Gibbs, he's going to be good. He's going to be a great pass catching back in this league. His ceiling is probably his floor is probably James White, which James White, to me, I'm a Patriots fan. He's a gold-plated player. People forget how amazing he was. So it's a great floor. And then his upside is, of course, still Evan Engram. But he's still got a lot to learn about the position, right? The good news for Gibbs is that you can't teach fast. You can't teach jukes, right? To a certain degree, we learned from Jordan Howard, you can't teach a guy how to catch the ball. So he has the raw part, and you can teach a guy how to have patience. You can't teach that other stuff. So just a matter of a rookie needed to learn more stuff. Classic situation for the time being. Start them both. Whatever. Great offense, great line. Start them both.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And I think that a lot of times the stories for these rookie running backs are not told in the first month of the year. Obviously, there's some contingency-based upside for either one of these running backs if the other one goes down. I mean, David Montgomery could go nuts if Jahmyr Gibbs misses. But, if David Montgomery misses time, we already saw, how many carries they were willing to give Gibbs. Then if Amon-Ra St. Brown or Laporta were to miss time, I think he'd be utilized more as a receiver. So I think the story hasn't been told. We also saw how Amon-Ra St. Brown in his rookie season, they waited for him to get acclimated, and then his role kept growing and growing. And then, second half of the season, they used him, predominantly as a focal point. So I'm still on Jahmyr Gibbs. People trying to trade me for my Jahmyr Gibbs in Dynasty. I'm not doing it. I'm chilling. Leave me alone. We're okay. Us Gibbs owners, we're okay, Coop, right?
Yeah. You guys are fine, dude. I mean, I have Gibbs too. We're good, man. Just don't worry about it. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, some of these, at least he's got a role. Remember David Johnson had to run back kicks until they finally said, hey, you know what? Okay, you can play now, right? I think he had to run back 200-yard kickoffs or whatever. And then they were like, all right, we'll give you a couple carries. The fact that Gibbs already has a game with 17 carries in the NFL, you've already won. A
9-target game and a 17 carry game.
Yeah,
we're okay. We got a lot of season left.
Look at Zach Charbonnet, dude. He's just chilling.
And let's talk about another running back who's defying expectations. I saw you tweet about him this week, but right now Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders is up to running back 8 on the year in PPR. Your thoughts on Robinson, and where do you kind of see him ending up, and talk about his role?
Yeah, I'll tell you, and the reason I tweeted about it is because it's important to me there's so many narratives to go into things. It's still 4 weeks, but it's important to me to admit at times where I was wrong and it's kind of been proven already. You know what I mean? So for Brian Robinson, I was completely off him because, I mean, last year he came out, he had 205 carries and only 9 receptions, right? So I know he missed time. He was, shot or whatever, but he wasn't shot in the hands. So the fact that he only got 9 receptions on a season where he had 200 carries, I was like, hey, you know what? They want to split the backfield. They have a converted wide receiver in Antonio Gibson. They're going to split the backfield. And the split isn't half and half. The split essentially is half for Robinson, the rushing half, and then they take the pass half, and he gets half that too. Which when you have 3/4 of role, it's all you need in this world, right, Theo? So what I do before the season for all the Fantasy Alarm members, I do a couple things that are behind. These are behind the paywall, but I do a target totem poll where I think how the targets shake out for all the teams. And I do this thing called the running back questionnaire, and I split everything up into 5 different situations. First down, which is basically first down / so I do first down, goal line, third down, 2-minute drill, and garbage time. And I separate third down from 2-minute drill because it's not always the same. A good example is last year, Jalen Warren was playing on third downs, but Najee Harris would get all the 2-minute drill snaps because you need to know all the audibles, all the schemes. There's no substitutions, right? So I split it up. And when I was doing the one for Washington, it didn't cross my mind that Brian Robinson could even have part of the third down work or part of the 2-minute drill work. And it turns out that's the case. So I wrote him off. And if you did grab Brian Robinson based on talent alone, you got to be feeling good. The people that were grabbing these guys that don't catch passes, I mean, if you drafted Brian Robinson and David Montgomery in those roles, then you got to be feeling good about it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was the structural drafters where, you were pushing wide receiver up. You've ended up with this tier of the DeAndre Swifts, the Isaiah Pacheco's, James Cook for a while was going late. He steamed up. James Conner, and then, like you said, Montgomery, and then Brian Robinson was going in some of these drafts in like the 9th round. So yeah, you have a huge advantage with those guys. And I've been impressed with Robinson. I started him for, on my teams for a couple weeks. And then this past week, I was like, I didn't love the matchup against Philly. So he was actually on a few of my benches, regrettably. So I think he's the kind of guy you just plug in there and you forget about it the rest of the way. What are your thoughts about the Chicago Bears offense right now? We've got, a big time performance last week by Justin Fields, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and then Khalil Herbert. Is this just a potential of a turnaround, or is it just Denver's so bad on defense, we've got to kind of throw this sample size out?
Yeah, I think that's a little part of it, man. It's like these players, all of them right now feel to me where like if I got them in best ball, nice. But during the season, I don't go back and look at and say, oh, nice, DJ Moore is really killing it in my best ball teams. That's the problem with best ball is that at the end of the year, you basically just show up and it's like a lottery ticket or a scratch ticket. And you just say, did I win anything? Right. It's, along the way, you think like, oh, I got them in some places, but you're not really caring about it the way you do your redraft. And that's the problem with a lot of these guys is I can't really trust them from week to week. The Broncos, as we know now, through 4 weeks, are the worst team that's ever been measured by DVOA. So obviously getting destroyed by the Dolphins is a big part of that, but I mean, yikes, that's no good, dude. That's pretty rough. They're going to get back, they're going to get back Justin Simmons. They're not going to be this bad all year, but it's hard to trust them in this situation. And the fact that coming out of that game and looking as good as they did, the fact that they're still 6.5-point dogs to Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders, I mean, that can't have you feeling good, man. I honestly, even as a non-Bears believer, I almost want to bet the Bears just thinking like, are they that worse than the Commanders? I mean, they'd have to be one of the very strong worst teams in the league to be 6.5-point dogs to Washington. I mean, Washington's defense is good. They're fine, right? But like, I mean, come on now, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know. I think Washington might put it on them. It's a good matchup for Washington's offense. I think Chicago's been very generous, and it's the short week, and Washington's got a little bit of a pass rush, and coming off of back-to-back losses, I think that they're going to go for it. And plus, you have do we kind of want Chicago to lose because Eberflus is going to get fired afterwards, and potentially a change there for Fields might be a good one. I don't know, Coop. It's a mess. All I know is I'm not that excited to watch a Thursday night game. There's about 10 games on the slate that I'd rather watch than that game on Thursday. So we'll sweat
there's
through
10 games on a 10-game slate.
That's right.
I'm trying to, and I was trying to make a showdown lineup the other day, and I'm like, who the hell do I put in here? It's like
Terry McLaurin. I feel like Terry McLaurin night.
Yeah, get him in there.
Yeah, it's going to be a McLaurin one. Let's talk about the New York Giants because, I read the yin and yang tight end article, and you make a nice bullish case for Darren Waller. I think fantasy Twitter and just, NFL analysts in general, it's kind of a sky is falling approach to the Giants. And I think they might be correct. I think the team is bad. But in terms of the usage for Waller's still like tight end 12 on the year, despite appearing to be kind of invisible. You seem sort of bullish on him. Apparently, why don't you kind of change people's minds right now in the fantasy space about how we should be treating Darren Waller, where he should be kind of on your tight end rankings kind of moving forward?
Yeah, so I have a routine I do every week where I pull all the statistics and then I'll manually by hand remove all the players that I consider not to be fantasy relevant. And I'm talking, I'll even leave, there's probably up to 40 to 50 tight ends I'll even still leave in there. You know what I mean? So, and then I'll color code all the stats I'm talking, I go through target share, route participation, pass block rate, ADOT, percentage of routes run from a wide receiver spot, yards per route you don't run, yards after the catch. And then I go through and I look at it and I say, what is prohibiting us from having upside? What's stopping us from, what's like, where can we find something to point at and say, okay, this is our guy? And you go through guys like Tyler Conklin and there's nothing to point at. They're not top 15, 20 and everything. But then you go and you look at guys like Kyle Pitts and Darren Waller and it's green across the board. And we know that with certain guys, that there might never be a catalyst that fix things. But like Darren Waller, when you look at his target share, his route participation, the number of snaps he pass blocks on, it's all green. It's all green across the board. And just this past week, I mean, he was standing in the end zone wide open when Daniel Jones threw a pick six. You saw the play, right?
That was incredibly frustrating for any Darren Waller manager. It could have completely changed the narrative, and the game would have been a little more competitive.
Right. Well, you see that everyone's playing the clip of Brian Dable where he's like, "What were you doing?" And I was talking about that play, and then you go back and watch it from the camera from behind the end zone, and it's like,
wide open.
Well, that's what he saw. That's what he saw is he saw a touchdown, and he threw a touchdown to the other team. So obviously brutal. Did you see Dable's interview after when they asked him? I think
no. I shut it out. I went right to bed.
Yeah, one of the reporters I think saw Waller back there, and he went to Dable and he was like, "Well, what were you hoping that Daniel Jones would do on that play? Like trying to get him to say throw to Waller?" And Dable goes, "Not throw an interception." Next question.
I love it. I love it.
He would not
a lot of pressure on Dable. I don't know. It's you don't like seeing these teams get so dominated into the first half of games. I think to an extent that's coaching, that's game plan. You can poke holes on the Giants, roster, and there's certainly some issues on different levels of the team. But, you see guys like D'Amico Ryans and you see, Slowick in Houston having a great game plan every week. I think that I'll say this, Gannon for Arizona is coming out and competing in every single week. So I'm not really too pleased with what I'm seeing from Dable and the Giants, but a lot of season left, Coop. We'll see.
Yeah, I worry. And the other thing, just to tack on real quick, is I worry when they signed Daniel Jones to that contract, when they could have just picked up the 5th-year option. I just worry because I sat here and I watched Andy Reid, and I like Brian Dable as a coach. I watched him I watched Andy Reid drag Alex Smith, not necessarily drag, but go to the playoffs year after year with Alex Smith. And Alex Smith would go to the Pro Bowl, and they'd win 12 or 14 games. And then the moment they brought in Patrick Mahomes, you looked at it and you said, oh my God, like this is what it could have looked like the whole time, probably, if they just had a slightly better quarterback. And you look at it with Carson Wentz and, then Jalen Hurts comes in and you're like, oh, like, so I just worry that sometimes you have these good coaches and they spend a long time with a Kirk Cousins, or I worry about it with Jared Goff. Like, what if, like Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, what if they're, what if he's just not enough, So I do worry about that sometimes for these guys.
Yeah, for sure. It's a weird dilemma for New York because if the season really does fall apart, they're going to have access to a pretty good quarterback class. I'm not sure if they're going to get the first pick type deal and be in the mix for like a Caleb Williams, but it's going to be hard to pass up on a franchise quarterback, and then you're stuck with this massive contract that's going to be difficult to get out of, and all this dead cap money in this Jones deal. So a lot of pressure on Dable, a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones, a lot of pressure on the Giants. But
I know where I want those quarterbacks to go.
I know you want that. I talked about that with Matt Kelly this week on Mind a Mansion, and how this not to get off topic, but Bill Belichick, Matt thinks it's going to be over for Bill Belichick at some point soon in New England. Where is your head at? It's the biggest loss of his entire career, and we're trying to figure out their final record. I think that like they have the win over the Jets, and then you look at the rest of their schedule. It's hard to find a lot of wins on the schedule.
Not a lot of wins on there, man. Here's the problem, honestly, is that Bill Belichick, we all know he's a good coach, right? Yeah. And people can make arguments that maybe he's not even the greatest coach in the world. Or there's certainly arguments that he's not the best GM. He's definitely not good at drafting wide receivers. I'll tell you that. But he's good enough that he can beat bad teams. He can beat bad quarterbacks. Look at the last games he's won. You can't sneak one by him with these guys, right? So he beat Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson. He beat in that game. He beat Zach Wilson. He beat Colt McCoy. So that's the problem, is that you need to lose all those goddamn games if you're going to get Caleb Williams or Drake May, because people aren't going to want to trade you. They're not going to want to give that guy to Belichick. You know what I mean? So like they almost need to get rid of Belichick to be worse. Remember when Adam Gase was winning games for the Jets and they were like, you're fired. Like, we cannot have you winning these games. So honestly, it might have to, and if you spun it like that, that would be amazing. But I imagine if Belichick still stayed coaching. Imagine if he wouldn't coach like the Chargers or somebody, and it was like,
I would love it. I would love to see
boy.
Bill Belichick go. I know that'll be bittersweet for New England fans, but
I'm a Patriots fan, and I'm just like, that would be cool.
It would be awesome. It would be awesome. It would be awesome for sure. It's definitely weird. And just quickly on the Patriots, they're very limited in their offensive personnel right now. Your thoughts on Ramondre Stevenson moving forward, how you can kind of treat him, and then do you have any hope on? You have Pop Douglas and Tyquan Thornton. At least those guys could bring some necessary speed into this receiving core. Do you have any hope for those two guys? For players in deep leagues? And then the Ramondre is a little bit concerning because they're starting to, give all this work to Zeke. It's a little bit concerning for Ramondre Stevenson managers right now.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for the wide receivers is Bill Belichick has this like obsession with the blocking ability of the X wide receiver, right? It's like you said all exercise team earlier today. Maybe one of the greatest all exercise performances ever was the Jahmyr Bird Patriots season, where he was out there every snap. Devontae Parker's out there every snap, dude, just getting his ass kicked by Sauce Gardner, whoever, it doesn't matter. So when you have that and you have Hunter Henry and then you have Mike Gesicki mixing in, it's so hard to get full snaps for anybody. Juju is playing the weirdest role I've ever seen, where every week he plays a decent number of snaps and then comes out for pass plays, but he's out there for run plays. Like, clearly he's not healthy. It's just a big mess. So for me, I'm starting Ramondre, and in my yin and yang rankings on the safe side, I have Hunter Henry. So we've moved down. I talk about Waller and Pitts. You can't drop them, but at this stage, I'm rostering 2 players, and I'm just basically picking up whoever the best matchup is for this week and starting him. And Waller, I'm still starting this week. But Kyle Pitts, I look at and I'm like, I don't even know how I can start this guy. You know what I mean? Like, Pitts is the craziest one because everything's green. Everyone knows that everything is green on the sheet across the board. He's second in route participation. His target share is like 17. He has blocked on 1 pass play the entire season. His ADOT is first. He's first in ADOT. He's first in wide receiver percent of snaps. Like, it's outrageous. It's just, I think his knee's messed up and they need Taylor Heineke. But that's what you're doing with Kyle Pitts, is you're holding on to him to hope his knee gets better and hope Taylor Heineke starts. And then, I mean, I saw him have a 1,000-yard season with the ghost of Matt Ryan, so why not? So that's why you can't necessarily drop these guys. You can't drop Dallas Goedert either. I mean, just to skip ahead a little bit, I know we're crunched on time, so I'll just answer a couple questions before you ask him, buddy.
Go with Dallas Goedert, because Dallas Goedert's become kind of like a punchline for you. On Twitter, you weren't shocked by his it's kind of like a middling performance. We've seen some kind of changes with the new offensive coordinator Johnson there, where AJ Brown's getting peppered with targets. The last 2 weeks he's got like 27 targets. It's incredible. DeAndre Swift, obviously, we've seen his usage go up. He looks great. Devonta Smith is what he is, but Dallas Goedert's yet to be super impactful for fantasy managers. What are your thoughts on him kind of moving forward? Do people need to temper their expectations of what he is this year?
Well, first of all, and this is the problem with what I have to do as the tight end whisperer. And I never call myself that, but
we call you that. We call you that.
They expect me to do it. And shout out to also the other Dan Williamson he's part of the tight end whisperer brotherhood over at the.
Yeah, you guys have like a secret handshake. You won't even let me see
it. You're a tight end whisperer too. The thing is, for me, I would never gatekeep a nickname I never call myself. And I call Howard Bender my tight end whisperer. To me, anyone you rely on for tight end advice, they can be your tight end whisperer. Just like, so-and-so could be your GOAT, right? If you want to rate or whatever. So you know what?
Tight end consigliere.
Exactly.
You're like the guy people hit up in the DMs.
People do hit me up for the tight end whisperer stuff. And I'll tell you what, the thing is, I wrote an article and there were 5 guys in there. I said, do not draft at ADP. 5 every year I do a fades article. Not once for half a decade now, Theo, not one tight end from this article has finished top 5 of the position. This year, the guys in the article were Dallas Goedert, George Kittle, Pat Freiermuth, Irv Smith, and Gerald Everett. And I said, these are the traps at ADP. Whatever, and because like people weren't drafting Irv Smith even in best ball. I was like, You want guys that are focal points of the offense, and these guys are in a tough spot. But I tell people not to draft these guys, but then they draft them anyway, and then they still come back to me with these problems. And I still have to answer those problems, and I still have to tell you what to do. And with Dallas Goedert, if you drafted him, you can't drop him. You can't drop him because he is one of the best handcuffs in all of fantasy football. He is a double handcuff. If he was a raw running back, we'd be calling him a handcuff plus. That's what I said this offseason. You're drafting a handcuff plus. He has some standalone value. It's A.J. Dillon or whoever. But if one of the wide receiver gets hurt, now he has difference-making upside, right? And in this case, with running backs, it's like you need the one running back to get hurt, and then your guy's good. With Dallas Goedert, it's either guy. If either guy goes down, we've seen time and time again, when one of the players goes down, the other two just get peppered. Quez Watkins, his numbers go up a little bit, but Quez Watkins is also hurt right now. Olamide Zaccheaus, he's not going to become a star. So, with Dallas Goedert got hurt last year, the Smith and A.J. Brown were each getting like 9 targets a game, right? So if something you have to hold him. But what we did is we moved Kittle and Goddard down to the yin side, where if you have them, take a bench spot and throw a Luke Musgrave, throw a Dalton Kincaid, throw a Logan Thomas, anything on there to try and get some upside. But you can't drop him because what happens if you drop Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown gets hurt, then you just missed your shot at having. I would probably move him into my top 5 tight ends for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way of looking at things with the target pecking order in Philadelphia.
Right.
How those 3 guys, they're so reliant on that trio that if one goes down, another one would step up. That's a great way of looking at things. One tight end that's moved up in your rankings, and it's funny because this was a guy who was your like a league-winning advice. You were telling people to draft him last offseason. Then he actually did win leagues, and that's Evan Engram. But then this offseason, he moved into kind of like that somewhat of a tight end dead zone area. And we talked about this. I don't even know if it was you and me and Dan Williamson or you and me and Billy Muzio. We did so many of these this summer. But Evan Engram has kind of not only beat expectations at ADP, but he's been one of the most consistent players on Jacksonville. The guy's had at least 5 catches in every game so far this season. He's second in Jacksonville in terms of overall catches, and he's tied for the lead in yards. Had a very good game this past week in London against Atlanta and faces off in a really, really tilting matchup against Buffalo this weekend. Your thoughts on Evan Engram? How bullish are you on him rest of the way? And your overall thoughts on this Jacksonville offense?
Yeah, I mean, Evan Engram is my favorite player. So, anytime we can talk Engram, I'm in. I've been touting Engram for years. Why I've also been a little biased against Daniel Jones, no doubt about that. Like, I'll admit that. I can admit when I'm biased for certain things. But the thing is, this is a guy green across the board. The one spot where he's not green is average depth of target, right? But that's because he's getting so many screens. He leads all tight ends in screens, and his yak is 6.3. So his average, he's making up for some of that ADOT with yak on the screens. And that's actually the problem with Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert got 19 screens last year. This new OC, he doesn't like that. He doesn't run the tight end screen as much. So kind of interesting how that goes. But the reason we didn't have Evan Engram as high is simple, is because Calvin Ridley came in and Zay Jones will be back. But even then, he's trustworthy. He was our number 1 yin in our yin and yang tight end ranks. Like I was telling people, the most conservative way to handle the tight end position is either to draft Travis Kelce or to wait and take Evan Engram and then take one of the rookies. Now, here's the real heartbreaker, Theo, is I've gotten this year in my replies to my tweets so many people saying that they drafted Evan Engram and went yin and yang tight end, but they didn't take Sam Laporta. You know why? They have the same bye week. They have the same bye week. So many people said I was looking at Laporta and I didn't take him because he's got the same bye week as Engram. And I think that it goes to show that forget bye weeks. Just don't worry about them. If you want to take the guy, take the guy. But yeah, a lot of people that would have been like the king combo for the strategy. But you know what? It is what it is. But yeah, like Evan Engram, he's been rock solid. I just moved him up to the standalone because I look at it and I say, we used to have Kittle up in the standalone tier. We used to have Goddard up there. And now we can't trust those guys. And they're in a worse target situation than Engram is. So if those guys, if you can't trust Engram, then who the hell can you trust these days? So he's up there. The 5 guys that are there right now are, and again, the article's free. Go to my timeline. I update it every Tuesday. So I'm updating this chart every Tuesday with write-ups on every player. I mean, Theo.
Yeah, I'm going to retweet it. I'm going to retweet it as well. It's great.
Can I do more for the tight end position though? It's like I'm doing everything I can. So go check that out now. But the 5 guys that I trust right now are Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Laporta, and Engram. Everybody else, I'm saying you should have 2 tight ends right now, especially with bye week starting.
Last tight end I want to ask you about are the tides shifting for Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid was a guy that I thought could have a impact like Laporta's having right now. And certainly, there was some frustration, but it seems like the usage is moving up at least last week. Your thoughts and your hopes for Dalton Kincaid moving forward?
Yeah, the plan was always the same with Dalton Kincaid. It was to draft 2 tight ends, Kincaid being one of them, and hold on to him to see if he hits the peak. Now, the problem here is the same psychological issues that we run into, Theo, is that if Sam Laporta didn't exist, we'd be looking at Dalton Kincaid and we'd be saying, this isn't too bad. I pulled up the all-time rookie tight end receptions through 4 games, and Dalton Kincaid is 7th. He's tied with Kyle Pitts through 4 games for 7th, which is good, right?
That's very good.
But Sam Laporta is 1 all time, and it's, you know what I mean? Like Sam Laporta is just, it's so good that we look at Dalton Kincaid and they're like, why isn't he Sam Laporta? When in reality, right now, his usage is among the best of any rookie tight end. And finally, this week, he, for the first time, ran more routes than he played more snaps than Dawson Knox. He ran 23 routes, which tied Gabe Davis, and they're only behind Stephon Diggs, who ran 27. So it's trending in the right direction. It's just it's the Laporta effect that's making people say, oh, I have to drop this guy to waivers because he's not Sam Laporta. Dude, there's not that many Sam Laportas. And think about how many people dropped Amon-Ra St. Brown. You talked about it, how he didn't break out for a while, not till week 11 when his role changed. Well, you know what? Sometimes it takes a little time. So Dalton Kincaid, if people start dropping him and you don't have an Engram or a Laporta or Andrews, like if you have Dallas Goedert and someone drops Dalton Kincaid, you just scoop him up and hope that he is this year's breakout tight end. Logan Thomas in 2020, through 6 weeks, he was tight end 26 and he finished at tight end 3. All right. So
I love it.
You gotta take a little time.
Yeah. Kincaid scores this weekend against Jacksonville. Coop, what game are you most excited for this weekend?
I mean, it's without a doubt with the Chiefs Vikings one, because I just think I know Kirk Cousins, man. Like he's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or you know what I mean? Like if he comes out and has a bad game, next game, or he'll have a bad half and then he'll have a crazy game. I think that Kirk Cousins is going to be taking this game very seriously at home against the Chiefs, and I'm just hoping this one is going to be as fun shootout wise as we hope.
Oh, we love it. I mean, fantasy wise, you got to hope for points in that one. And we were so let down by that Jacksonville Kansas City game. We thought that was going to be a fun fantasy shootout.
I know.
This one though, Coop, the Chargers Vikings kind of give us everything we wanted, except there was a couple of goofy plays. That was the only reason that wasn't like a 38-35 game, turns into a 28-24 game. This Kansas City Minnesota game, it feels like a lot of points. We love games like that. Let everybody know again where they can find you. And I'm going to retweet your article, but I highly recommend it being part of your weekly reading, and part of your weekly routine. It drops every single Tuesday, so it can definitely help you with waivers, whether your league has Tuesday or Wednesday night waivers. Make sure you read this, especially if you're looking to add some new tight ends. Coop, you're everywhere, man. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, man. And I will say this about the yin and yang tight end article is that it goes hand in hand with your player profiler stuff because it's a philosophy. It gets you thinking a certain way where you can take the idea in my rankings and then go over to the player profiler rankings and check out those and say, okay, these are the tight ends they like, and here's how I'm going to mix and match them, right? So it's not like it's one or the other. Like you take my philosophy, use the guys you trust at player profiler, because I know you guys do. And I just want to say real quick before I plug my stuff, I love that you guys separate in your dynasty stuff the ups, the competing now versus not competing. Because
that's very
huge,
cool.
Huge, man. Because it's like my tight end. People ask me, who's your dynasty tight end one? Well, it depends where you are. If you're competing now, it's Travis Kelce. If you're competing for later, it might be Sam Laporta. So anyway, just hit me up on Twitter at Coop A Fiasco. I post all my stuff. I'm live every day on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube, pretty much from 1 to 3 p.m. every single day, just talking philosophy like this, stuff like this. Theo's coming on the show on a Friday coming up this year. This is me. I'm not even asking you. I'm telling you right now that you're coming. I'm in,
man.
Right?
You could just, you just say, come on the show.
I'll just pencil
I'm in. I don't even say like, hey, what date? I'm ready to rock.
I got you. Yeah. So we'll get you going on that, man. It'll be fun, dude. That's a fun show because we just hit the slate and do an FFPC lineup. So it's fun. So yeah, Just hit me up on Twitter. Hit me with your questions. Thanks, gang.
Awesome, for sure. And then, guys, speaking of lineup advice and rankings, Billy Muzio and Bradley Stalder are bringing you the Dominator every Saturday night. It's not a podcast. You have to tune in to Player Profiler YouTube and check it out. They're answering every single question. Billy and Bradley planned on being on for like half an hour. It turned into like an hour because there were so many people with lineup questions. That show is going to be dropping at either 9 or 9:30 Eastern time on Saturday evenings. There'll be a tweet. Check out Player Profiler Twitter for that. Shout out to those guys on the Dominator. And yeah, our all-in package right now got lowered to $85, lowered from the summer price. And if you use the code Theo, you get $10 more off. That gives you Billy's rankings. It gives you all of our Dynasty information. It gives you our DFS tools. It's a great resource. Check out Andrew Cooper at Koopa Fiasco on Twitter. Check out his work at Fantasy Alarm. It's dope. It's great stuff. And stick with us at Player Profiler. We want to see you win a lot of money. We want to see you win a lot of leagues this season. Got a lot more great stuff coming up all season long here at Press Coverage and at First Class Fantasy. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All-In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.